Hey, everybody. How are you? Thank you so much for being here. It is so good to have you all here in the space. Thank you so much for making this a part of your evening. I'm just super excited, so I'm intentionally trying to not talk 18,000 miles a minute. It's going to be a good night. My name is Nick. I am one of the ministers here, and this, of course, is Wellington Square United Church. We are an inclusive church that gratefully gathers on the land of the Mississauga of the Credits. And one of the big things that we are about as a faith community, if you kind of boil it all down, I'm not going to make this all churchy for you. I'm just going to tell you who we are. One of the big things that we're about is talking about what it means to be truly human and alive in the world. For us, that's what faith and spirituality is really all about, is how do we exist in here and how do we exist out there in ways that are deep and meaningful and full of purpose and joy and wonder and transform the world into a place where everyone has enough and everyone has a place. And we do that in all kinds of ways. We do that as a church by talking about spirituality and community and justice. Those are our core values. But one of the ways that we're really leaning into talking about who we are is through art. Because art has this power to say things that mere words can't, right? Your favorite song, your favorite piece of, your favorite painting, all these things can convey deep spiritual truths that we can't in normal ways. And that is why tonight we are so excited to have a night of poetry, for us to be inspired, to experience some awe and wonder, and leave here feeling hopeful, feeling united, and feeling more alive than when we came in. But before we get into all of that, a few little housekeeping things. If you gotta go to the washroom, go to the washroom. There are some washrooms in the back. There are some washrooms through this door and down the hallway. Don't worry about interrupting. Just get up and sneak out and come back in. Same thing for tea and coffee and water. There's some coffee and tea in the back. There's some coffee and tea over there. We are a church that encourages you to bring it into the sanctuary. And so if you've not yet gotten coffee because you think you're not allowed, go get one. Bring it in. If you're like me, you need something to hold, and so please go and do that. Afterwards, David has some printed poems, some bumper stickers. Anything else? For sale in the lobby. So if you want to take home a piece of poetry or some kind of art or a nice bumper sticker, go talk to David and see the folks out in the lobby, and you can bring that home with you. We wanted this to be an event that was accessible to everyone. And so this is a pay-what-you-can event, and we really do mean that. If for you that is nothing, cool, that's nothing. If for you that is $5, $10, $20, $30, whatever it will be, cool, that is it for you. There are a few ways that you can do that. We have some baskets by both doors for cash. There is a tap machine in the lobby. There's also a QR code in front of you. You can scan that. That will take you to the website, donate through your credit card that way. It basically goes to cover our costs for putting this event on. But we really wanted to make this something that anyone and everyone could experience, regardless of if you could afford it, regardless if you're churched or not, because poetry and essential conversations are things that we want everyone to be a part of. And so again, thank you so much for being here. It's going to be an amazing evening of poetry and conversation. And so if you would please, all the way from the UK, that's not true. I'm messing up already. From the UK, then to the States, and then to a second time in Canada. Someone who I've admired for a while now and who have been following on Instagram for a while and really, really love his work and his voice. And I think it is so needed in a time like this, and you'll understand why. Could we please give a very warm welcome to David Gate?
Thank you. Thank you. Your weather lives up to its reputation up here. But I'm from England, so I feel at home. Such a joy to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for giving up a Saturday evening to come and listen to some poems. And I'm going to just dive into one. Can I read you a poem? Is that all right? So I'm going to read you the first poem from my book, A Rebellion of Care. And so this book came out earlier on in the year, and it's a culmination of a few years' work, a collection of poems, some of which I began posting on Instagram a few years ago, and a bunch of which that I've written since as things have grown, as things have developed, and I'm really here to share this piece of work with you. And this is the very first poem in the book, which is called A Manifesto for a Rebellion of Care. Make art and music because music and art are love letters to the living, addressed to us all. Learn forgiveness, practice repentance, make reparations, carry no offense. In the accumulation of loss, retain an affinity for joy, and know that some truths are only illuminated by tears. Listen to people's stories like you are listening for a pulse, like you are in the cloud of transfiguration, wrapped by the voice of heaven. If you see someone who is vulnerable, confused, lonely, or lost, pick them up and keep them going. Treat food and drink and the tables you meet around like the true religions they are. There is nothing more sacred. Temper the clamor for greatness and become a student of goodness in order to create more beauty than toil. Turn from competition, let go of envy, bankrupt rivalry, and lift others up. No more grabbing and taking and hoarding. Instead, we sway in the dance of giving and receiving, becoming something more co-op, more kibbutz, more kumbaya. There are other ways to live that need no flags or anthems, where we can all thrive in the ceremony of nature, tending to the fauna, cultivating the flora, keeping clean the air, keeping pure the water, being equally fascinated by stars and soil, stewarding the earth in ways ancient and indigenous. Don't purchase your happiness, nurture it. Your best life isn't to succeed in every venture while married to the perfect partner and moving in an ideal body. It is to love without fear. Always be totally yourself, but know that the most radical thing you can do, what will really change the world, is to allow others to be their full selves in their complexity, in their entirety, and their absurdity. Dignity is the only thing that you can give that when given, you will have more of than when you began. We contain multitudes. Therefore, we exist in our own beings as community. Every law, every institution, every form of governance is nothing more than an assent. Agreement is energy, and where two or three of us are unified, there is the presence of God. So what do we owe each other? Nothing. And yet, everything. When you heal, we all heal. So stay connected to your own unique spirit that you cannot be reduced to an economic unit. Don't be so bound up in your own problems that you forget to be either loving or grateful. Don't be so caught up in existential despair that you expedite the void to our present moment. And if you feel yourself shrinking away like a fruit beyond its moment of ripeness, pared back by daily grind and algorithm until all that is left is the core of you, you are not diminishing. You are being left with nothing but your sheer potential, the seed of something new. Another way is possible. So I receive you as you are, because there is no love without acceptance. I hold no claim on you. I have no shame to bear for you. All I have is yours, a rebellion of care for earth, for each other, for your own tender frame. You can clap, that's allowed. It makes everyone feel better about it, and particularly me, which is the most important thing. So
Absolutely. We want to make you feel loved
Yes.
and appreciated.
Thank you.
That's my favorite one
Yeah.
in the book. And there's so many things I
It's
want
the
to talk
longest one as well. They're not all that long, but
about. No, they're not. It's true. We were talking about that one at our conversation group last week and pulled over in so many spots. So I want to come back to it. But because a lot of us are just getting to know you, I would love to hear a little bit about the people and places that shaped you and formed you,
Yeah.
the creative kind of influences, the spiritual influences
Yeah.
that kind of made you the artist and the man that you are today and kind of helped you get to this point where you are writing about rebellion.
So I grew up in North London in a borough called Harrow, which is in northwest London. And I grew up in a Christian family. My parents were both first-generation Christians, became Christians in their late teens, early 20s. And so me and my sister were raised in the church, went to Sunday school. We were part of a church plant, so it was a very small church. And so I grew up in this small local environment, just going to church all the time. The style of church was a charismatic Anglican church, right? So, which I know, because I live in America now, and the Americans cannot comprehend that. They can't comprehend an Anglican church, which they see as being, very stuffy, and then a charismatic church, which is crazy. And they can't see how the two of those things can exist together in England. But they do. And so I was part of this movement in the UK, grew up in that environment. When I got to my teenage years, I began to take my own faith incredibly seriously, and really owned it for myself. Is it not just being, what I was brought up in my parents' faith, it was really became my own. And the most natural thing for me to do when that happened, when I was about 15 years old, was to write. I had always loved writing, and I'd recently just started to learn the guitar. And so with my 3 chords, I started to write songs, worship songs mainly. And in that environment, started to share them, because, you're 15 and you don't know that you're not good at it. And so, I was sharing my songs, and it ended up having a couple of them published at a very young age. I was 16 when I had the first 2 songs published, and then I had a bunch more in my later teens. And that really told me I could write, and that I had something to say, and that somebody somewhere might want to listen to what I had to say. And so I just kept writing, and I kept writing in the directions that interested me. I got married in 2002, and then straight away we moved to Northern Ireland, and we lived in Belfast in Northern Ireland for 3 years. And I'd grown up English, obviously, in London, and I hadn't really understood how much the Irish hated us until I moved to Northern Ireland, and I began to learn the history of Belfast, the history of Northern Ireland, the history of British colonialism in general. Because what happens in school in England, and it might be different for you in Canada, but in England, this is what happens, is that you learn history at school, and you learn 1066, you learn the Magna Carta, you learn the Tudors, you learn, King Henry VIII and, 6 wives, and then we don't talk about anything until the Second World War, and then we're back again, and we're the heroes again, and we leave out this great big chunk of history, and that's because we went around the world and terrorized people, and so I didn't really know the history of Ireland until I moved there, and it was something about being in a place that had actively experienced the pain of the colonialism and the violence that my people, that my country had inflicted, that began to really kind of opened my eyes to the way that the things that I was a part of, and the things that I had grown up in, the things I had inherited, the culture, both in terms of church and in terms of nationality and politics, were not good, right? Like they had done things that were really wrong and evil, and were in some ways continuing to. And so that was really like a lot of where the rebellion element of my work was formed, was in Ireland. And then we moved back to England. We were dead broke. We had kids, and so I took a job at a church in England, in a charismatic Anglican church, and led worship there for 5 years. And then just felt in that environment very restricted creatively about what I could say about God and what I couldn't. You know, the kind of, as my theology was becoming more affirming, more progressive, more open to loving everyone as I thought this Jesus I was reading about was telling us to, it came into conflict with those around me. And so I just felt very restricted there. And so I ended up taking a job in Jacksonville, Florida, of all places. Has anyone here ever been to Jacksonville, Florida? You ever been to Duval County? Well, anyway, so I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, which is a little different weather-wise to Burlington. And yeah, I was sunburnt for about 5 years, and I met amazing people there, had a great time there, but realized that perhaps Florida was not my natural culture. And so, and again, like we had moved to an amazing church in Jacksonville, but that was in 2011, and over the course of those 5 years leading up to 2016, we began to realize that, in this place, not everyone, is moving in the same way we're moving, and perhaps you might vote for someone that I couldn't possibly imagine voting for. And so we just felt ourselves, again, not at home. And so we decided that we wanted to continue to do our faith, and so we decided that we were going to do a home church, and we wanted to find somewhere to do that. And so we stumbled across Asheville, North Carolina. Has anyone ever been to Asheville, North Carolina? Okay, it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful part of the world, in the Appalachian Mountains, in the Blue Ridge, and it is a wonderful city. It's one of the best cities for food and for beer in America. We have amazing water, and so we have like 40 breweries in our little city. So if you like beer, which I do, and if you like food, which I do, and if you like mountains and clean water and all that, then it's a wonderful place to visit. So we ended up moving there, and that has been a delight. It's felt more like home than anywhere I've been. And so in that environment, funnily enough, like when you're in a place where you feel like you belong, as a poet or as a writer, as someone who creates, there's something about being in a place where you finally belong that actually brings out your true work and your best work. And so that's what I found living in Asheville these last 9 years, yeah.
Thank you. Would you read us another one?
I would. Okay, so speaking of Asheville, there is a chapter in this book called Soft Fascination. And there's this concept in psychology where if you are stuck in a problem, like you're just stuck and you don't know what to do, and you're kind of stressed and overwhelmed, then literally going outside and being in nature just for half an hour can solve. You will find the problem solved in your mind. You will creatively just stumble across the problem, because there's something about that in our daily lives we are constantly overwhelmed by sights and sounds, by notifications on our phone, by all the things that distract us in this life. And if you have children, children. And all the things that distract us. And so when we're in nature, there's the perfect balance of things that will interest you and take your attention and grab your attention. You'll see a mushroom over there. You'll see the moss growing. You'll hear the wind. And you're constantly stimulated. But none of it is overstimulating. None of it will get your cortisol levels up. None of it will get your dopamine going. It's a serotonin experience. And so it uses words that we would say like it regulates you, right? It centers you. It brings you into some measure of peace. And in that, you can escape. Anyway, that's a long way to ruin this poem by telling you what it's about. So this is a poem called Soft Fascination. Alive, I am walking through old trees that feel as healing as balm or prayer. I catch aromas of heather and pine, slowing the pulse of thought and progress. The pendulum within slows its ceaseless swing between the overwhelm of task and labor and the underwhelm of chronic boredom. I must pay attention to what I cannot possess. I glimpse the morning moon in the clearing of bright bluebells and stop, flower-wrapped. I am awake in a forest of being, changing nothing here but where I tread. I name the sights, I name the smells, I name the sounds of nightingales, warblers, the wind in the leaves, a distant young child, and the brook. I am only moving where my body goes. No automobiles, no airplanes that throw me wherever I am told I have to be. It seems to me that I could become rooted here, my feet sinking into the earth to belong, but also that I could leave to soar with the goshawks. So it is to be human, receiving the world in soft fascination, to rediscover ourselves, our nature, our supernature, and the spirit that animates our fragile existence.
Some themes that run through your work are kind of that you just talked about a bit of them, you read it there, but the themes of being present, the themes of paying attention.
Yeah.
Can you share with us why are those things themselves acts of rebellion? Because we live in a world that's go, 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 do, think ahead, or be back here.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult, I think, for a lot of us, especially with these things, to pay attention, to be present in the way that you're writing about.
Yeah.
And so can you share with us a little bit about why those things are subversive, why they are liberating and acts of rebellion in and of themselves?
Yeah, I think we're conditioned to be obsessed with what we do not have. And so one of the things about, in that poem, there's a line about paying attention to what I cannot possess. And of course I can't possess nature, maybe I can have an acre of it in North Carolina, but I can't really control that. Even if I wanted to, there's too many, fireflies and ants and unfortunately rats that want to make their way onto the land that I get to steward. And so I think we're so conditioned to be obsessed by what we do not have and what we want and what we feel like we should have. Advertising, algorithm, all of this stuff is geared to make us want, to make us ache, to make us feel unsatisfied, because if we feel unsatisfied, then we will keep spending, keep working, keep trying, keep striving. And so I really do think it's a rebellious thing to stop and pay attention and to just be aware of your own self and your own body, to be aware of what's around you. And I really feel like that's the task of the poet more than anything, and the task of the writer. One of the writers I love is Joan Didion. You're familiar with the writings of Joan Didion, and one of the things that she did so well was that she would just observe. And so she would just observe and then describe what was happening or describe what she saw without offering much comment. But in doing that, being incredibly good at describing very accurately at what she saw, she was able to, simply by observing, comment more than you possibly could by just having an opinion, right? It was the act of observation, it was the act of attention that drew out the truth of the thing. And I think that's the job of the poet and the job of the writer, and I would encourage us. I think that's a huge part of faith as well, is to be people who observe and pay attention. Not to be the first to try and fix and solve and strive and work and earn and conquer and be victorious, but really to exist and to breathe and to know and to be present in our bodies and in ourselves. And I think in these days, most importantly, with each other, right? To be present to one another. So I'm going to read you can I read another poem?
Yeah.
Right.
You still need my permission.
Sorry?
That's why you're here. Please,
I know, that's why we're here.
Read them all.
I like to ask permission. You know, it's the age of consent. Okay. If you have a book, if you have a hymnal, it's on page 45. Oh, keep hitting the mic. There we go. This is called Mutual Sanctuary, and this is about being present with one another. I place no demand that you bring the very best version of yourself to every occasion we meet. Between us, there is no contest of composure or need to impress. You can show up with fraying strands of cotton seams and DNA, jerry-rigged by the safety pins of coffee and obstinance. We will both be present in all our unraveling. Make no attempt to get it together for me. We are together, and that is all I need.
One of the questions I had for you is about being a truth teller and how that's a role you have embraced.
Yeah.
Is it reluctant? Because to tell the truth will get you into trouble. It will open doors that we don't like to open, but open doors we need to open.
Yeah, I think there's a part of me that I'm the eldest child, and so I want to be good and do right and be thought of as good. And certainly there's a conditioned fawning response that I have, where I want to please people and I want to make people happy and so forth. But underlying that, like deep inside me, is this absolute determination to say what is true. I can't not. Like, it eats me up. It eats me alive. If I'm in environments where I feel like I can't be myself, but particularly to speak the truth, then it will always find a way out. And when I was younger, I feel like that wasn't always the healthiest. Like, I would very much try and keep that down, and then it would, pop out, and it would be, perhaps angrier or than I would like, or ill-informed, or whatever. And so I've learned to channel this. So before I came here, I was in Boston for 4 days with my mother and my sister. And my mother and my sister both live in England, and my mother just turned 70. And so we had a little family trip to Boston, and we hung out there, and I did an event like this in Boston, and my mum was there. And I dedicate this book to my mother, right? My mother was a lifelong nurse, incredibly gifted at caring for people. But as I said in front of her on Tuesday, she's also a bit of a bitch, and always just had this relentless, like, she would, in church and in nursing and in schools and like whenever there was someone who was like a leader or a person in power who was like, not doing their job or not looking after people, she would make life difficult for them. And so those are the two qualities I think are very, very powerful together, and I think I see some of that in myself, and it was very much, when I was writing the book, I was trying to put those things together in ways that are healthy. And because there's so much I don't know if you were paying attention to the news in America, but there's a lot to react to on a daily basis. And so the temptation is always simply to react, is simply to get out there and just react and have outrage and if you do what I do and you're kind of posting in online spaces, that's the easiest and quickest way to get eyeballs on what you're saying is to react and to highlight things that are outrageous and evil and wrong. But I want to be a bit more thoughtful than that, and I want to pay a bit more attention. So there's a chapter in this book called I Must Also Feel It as a Man. And it is a chapter about emotional competency. And I must also feel it as a man is a line from Macbeth. And so in the play Macbeth, the Shakespeare play Macbeth, if you didn't know who wrote that, it was Shakespeare. If you've not heard of him, check him out, pretty good. The character Macduff finds out that his family have been murdered. And his kinsman who's with him says, you must go and avenge this. You must go and fight as a man. And Macduff responds, yes, but first I must also feel it as a man. And I've always loved that phrasing and that response of not immediately rushing to the sword, not immediately rushing to fix things, solve things, take revenge, take action, but instead to feel it first and to experience it first. And so, I wrote a whole chapter about that. Can I read you one of the poems from that chapter? I ask your permission every time, and you're going to say yes. So.
Yes, you may.
And even if you said no, I'm still going to read it. Because I have the microphone. Okay, so this is now my little city of Asheville last year went through a terrible natural disaster. Hurricane Helene came through, and usually the hurricanes come up through Florida and wipe out Florida and maybe little bits of Georgia or maybe Louisiana, but this one brought all its rain right up to North Carolina and dumped it on our mountains. I think it was something like 3 trillion tons of water that was dumped in about 12 hours. And all of our rivers gave way, all of our dams gave way, and about 1,000 people lost their lives. And it devastated. Oh, wow. That wasn't God. And it devastated anywhere by the water in our city. And the French Broad River runs through our city. And let me tell you a little story about the French Broad River. When I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, right, this is a total aside. I'm going to get back to the poem in a minute. But this is just, it's interesting about the American way of thinking. When I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, there's the St. Johns River a huge river that runs through Jacksonville, Florida. And that river runs from south to north, okay? And when I moved there, they were like, there's only 2 rivers in the world that run from south to north. Do you know what they are? The Nile and St. John's River, Florida, right? Amazing. And then I moved to North Carolina, and then we have the French Broad River, and I moved to North Carolina, and they said, do you know there's only 2 rivers that run from south to north? The Nile and the French Broad River. And I said, hang on a minute, that's not true. And there's at least 3. And I went and Googled it, and there's about 300 around the world. And now that's a very small percentage of the rivers in total. Most do run either east to west, west to east, or north to south. But no, they think they're so special, right? No, they're not. Anyway, So back to the story at hand. So our little city was totally devastated. Houses washed away, people lost, lives gone, businesses gone. And so in my family, like we did not suffer terribly. Our property was fine. We lost a piece of siding from the side of our house. But we were without water for 12 weeks, without drinking water for 16 weeks. We lost power and all sorts of things. But relatively we're fine. We were able to, we didn't lose anyone or anything. And so in the middle of this natural disaster, everybody was saying to stay strong, right? Stay strong. Asheville strong. We're going to be strong. And that's important. But I kind of wanted to redefine what I think being strong means in that kind of tragedy. So this is called Stay Strong. They say to stay strong in the throng of disaster. So I let my body unravel all its secrets of magic and memory, so that joy and sorrow and terror and love bleed like watercolors together at the edges of their vivid hues, falling into serendipity. Because to feel it all is to surrender, and not all surrender is loss. So I let everything live within me like the galaxy I am, because I cannot imagine anything stronger than the courage to live like we are fully alive.
You've got me thinking about two things. When I read, 'cause as a dude, like vulnerability is tough. We're taught from very young age to be strong and to have it all together and don't be emotional and you gotta talk like this and have it all, But then you discover, usually by having your life blow up, why vulnerability is so important. And as I read your work, it feels like you're caring for me. Where my soul feels tended to. I feel seen.
Yeah.
Not all poetry does that.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about, and it feels intentional.
Yeah.
It feels like to use a church word, it's pastoral.
Yeah.
But I think it's deeper than that, where you know how powerful love is.
Yeah.
And you know how, especially as men, but I think as humans, like if we create space for vulnerability and we can invite people to live with courage within that, we can do that surrender, which is so liberating and transformative.
Yeah.
But it starts with kind of that act of care.
Yeah. I think it starts with being honest with yourself about what you need and what you want, and the ways in which you are hurting. And I think, I know, so I grew up British and we're not famous for our emotional bandwidth. I grew up Christian and Christians are not famous for their emotional bandwidth. And I also grew up male. And we're not famous for our emotional bandwidth. And so it's always been a fight for me to kind of, feeling like a sensitive little songwriter, poet, in kind of trying to exist in a world that doesn't really appreciate that, or only appreciates it like in very certain ways, bombastic ways, and to be a rock star or to be, cool or whatever, but cool itself is very oppressive, and not wanting to exist in that way, but to exist in a way that was sensitive and tender and open. And so it's been a constant fight, I think, in my life to do that. But I've also found like that's where the best writing comes from, the best work comes from. And so it's interesting you say that you feel seen by some of my work, because I think a lot of poetry can do the opposite for people. Like, a lot of poetry deliberately obscures, right? So there's an adage that jokes reveal and that poetry conceals, right? So jokes reveal the truth. Humor reveals and poetry conceals, right? So there's the jokes will get to the truth of a thing, right? Like, and you tell a joke and it's funny because it's true and so forth. But that poetry, by and large, has this concealing effect where you have to kind of go into the fog of it to try and make out what's in there, because so much of the language and so much of the ideas and the concepts and metaphors and similes in there are often deliberate to make you work for it, right? And so I grew up with, the British poets and the particularly, the kind of Second World War, post-Second World War poets, the canon of like Auden and T.S. Eliot and unfortunately Ezra Pound and poets like that, and just the heaviness of everything. Everything was so heavy and about war and about loss of life and about there was the second coming and poems like that. And so it wasn't until slightly later in life where I really found it was the work of Mary Oliver and the work of Wendell Berry who really kind of opened up this more pastoral way of looking at the world and of writing poetry, and poetry in a way that I felt revealed rather than concealed, right? And so that's when I found that, I was like, that's how I want to write. That's how I want to share. But so much of what I write is things that I wish I could hear, right? So it's not, it can come across as wisdom, right? It can come across as like, oh, this is this wise saying or whatever. But it's really just something that little child David wishes he could hear. There's a poem, like the first poem of mine that kind of went viral online is a poem about friendship, and it's called Like Every Selfie. And let me read it to you and then tell you how I wrote it. So this is Like Every Selfie. Be kind about the names your friends give to their children. Praise their haircuts, love their tattoos. It doesn't really matter if that's what you would do. Like every selfie, all of them. Clap their songs, cheer them on. You were born with a limitless supply of encouragements. Use every one of them. Don't wait for the eulogies to speak out loud that your friends are precious and they make you feel proud. Right? So I wrote that poem, and thank you. That's a good one. It's a good one. And I wrote that poem, and it really came out of, I just started posting my poetry online, and I've been doing this for about 3 months, and I was incredibly frustrated with how little my friends cared, and how little they like I was obviously doing this vulnerable thing, like I was deciding like I was going to share this poetry online, and I was doing a poem a week, and like, most of my friends, it's like, they don't care, it's just like, yeah, great, good job, Dave. And so like, I had planned to like do a little video of me like saying, hey guys, I'm writing poetry, if you could help and click like, and all that. And I remember thinking, I should just make that a poem. And so this poem, which, the way it's written is like, do this because it's really good. It's really, really saying, please like my poems. It's like
passive-aggressive poetry.
Yeah, it's like the heart of the poem is, please like what I'm saying and doing, and just encourage me a little bit, friends. Thank you. And so I learned a lesson there, which was to take something that I wanted and needed, and something that was like quite insecure about myself, and able to, I guess the word we use right now is to reframe it, and to reframe it as something that was encouraging rather than something that was desperate and insecure. Even though I was still desperate and insecure. Like, the poem itself is not a desperate and insecure poem. And therefore it reaches people. It reaches and touches, it hits you in two ways. One, it hits the part of you that wishes you were more encouraged, and that in the songs you're writing and in your pursuits that you had friends that were encouraging you. But it also reminds you in a really positive way to like, oh yes, that's how I want to be. Like, I want to be that friend. I want to be the friend that encourages and clicks likes and claps people along as they're doing their thing.
And there's a theme throughout the book, and a lot of your poetry is the essentialness of community, of friendships, of deep relationships, of not just operating kind of on the surface and the superficial, but it really seems like you see the depth as an essential part of this whole movement of rebellion, and that's what leads to hope and joy and transformation, is actually having the courage to show up and be vulnerable and see and be present and celebrate.
Yes. It really, I really view this book kind of as an anti-individualism book. It's not about individualism. Now, saying that, I also didn't want it to be a book that was like, hey everyone, you're not caring enough. Like another burden, another thing that you're not doing well, in late stage capitalism, is you're not caring enough, we don't have a community because you're not doing it properly. Like, I didn't want it to be like that, and to have that tone or that message at all. But equally, I did want to directly challenge our notions of individualism, our notions of how we are increasingly isolating ourselves through technology and through certainly in the US, political divides and cultural splits, and so much of our Western world is very isolating these days, and people are very lonely. And so I wanted to write an anti-loneliness book and encourage us all to take on that responsibility, both for ourselves and in self-care. Like, so when I first started writing poetry, like I like the poem I just read, Like Every Selfie, and a few other like really nice poems I wrote. Like, there are some not so nice poems in here. I'm reading you all the nice ones. There's more of the rebellion ones and with the cuss words and stuff like that. But so when I first started writing the poetry, like, I found myself in the kind of part of the algorithm that was like the self-help part of the algorithm, right? And so just a lot of positivity folk coming my way, and I was like, no, that's not me. I'm not all sunshine and light. I am like my mother, a bit of a bitch. And so I very deliberately then tried to include these elements of rebellion and try to kind of pierce that positivity and that. And I can read you a poem about that, actually. So this is from the chapter Haunted and Exhausted, which is about faith. Okay, and so this is called Vinegar. I am convinced there is nothing more hopeless than constant positivity, the sheer tyranny of it. I would rather sleep in the darkness and eat the fruit of sadness, taste the bitter wine and make grief a brother, and take up my cross, and then, in waiting, discover how death can lose its sting. So yeah, not all sunshine and light and rays and happiness. And so, thank you. Yeah, and so I wanted an emotionally honest piece of work, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But those are the powerful ones, though, dude. Like,
Yeah.
like those are the ones that are still an act of care for us.
No.
In
Yeah,
a way, right?
In my mind and in my heart, they're in the same spectrum as
Yeah.
the nicer, positive ones. The connection is human dignity, right? So the connection is the value of our life and the lives of others, and how precious we should treat all that. Like, that's the thing that sews all these things together. But certainly, when I post things like that, that's when I lose followers
yeah, fair.
and
fair.
so forth. Little dark night of the soul is not great for growing a brand, I found.
But what I really love about your work is it's part of everything that we've talked about, but you help us reframe and re-see or even reclaim these words, especially in church world, that just become so useless, like hope, joy, love, community, and they become vulnerability, authenticity, but yet they're essential words to get to the kind of world that our souls long for. And you have this really great talent and this gift for us of saying, no, joy is an act of rebellion.
Yeah.
And positivity can be toxic. And you kind of help us see it for what it is and then invite us into something new, which I find really energizing.
Thank you. Yeah, I've always kind of thought that way about faith and Bible stories. I was always trying to find a different angle. I guess that's the writer in me, like, wanting to rewrite the thing and wanting, seeing the different angles and the different ways of interpreting. And that always became frustrating for me because I went to theological seminary for a while, and what I liked about being there was learning new ways of looking at things. But what I didn't like about being there is the kind of subtle presumption that this was the right way that we are teaching you, right? So I found so much more life in holding all those different views and ways of reading the Bible and reading these Bible stories, holding them all together and getting something from this one and something from that one and this perspective, that perspective, that for me creates a richer, more full, more satisfying faith. And so I was always kind of trying to do that myself, right? Not just finding others, but like writing it, like this is how I see that story. This is how it speaks to me. This is how what I learn and what I get from it. And I guess the practice is like lectio divina, like if you're going to do that with scripture, like it's an ancient practice. And I did not grow up in a environment that did that. And so I had to kind of invent it myself, not realizing I was just inventing something that was ancient.
It's always that way.
Yeah,
right?
it's like
we discover
there's nothing new. You just discover.
Oh, it's okay to doubt.
Yeah,
we've been talking about that for generations and centuries.
Yeah.
But you really do a great job in terms of like the spirituality of it, regardless of how you would come at it, of encouraging us to embrace mystery.
Yeah.
And to ask questions and to recognize that God is just a word, and whether it's energy or consciousness or love or however we would want to define that it is something that we can have access to. And it begins with like being abducted by awe and wonder and being kind of taken into that mystery.
So in February of 2020, I had been writing my job. Me and my partner were leading this house church, and so I was doing that like half the time, and then the other half of my time I was sports writing. I was writing about Liverpool Football Club every day, 3 or 4 articles a day. I got paid by the click, so I was writing as much as I could in my spare time. So I was writing about that like every day, and then I realized that the company that I was doing that for should have been paying me much better than they were legally, and so I decided to sue them, and that's when I became a real American. Anyway, and we had a class action lawsuit, and 150 of us joined that class action lawsuit, and they paid us out. Anyway, win for the good guys. I took my $2,000 and I just did the... Anyway, what was I saying that? Oh yes, so in February 2020, I had been doing that, and I stopped in February 2020, and I was like, this income stream had dried up, and I was like, okay, I think I've got 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, where I could devote myself to writing a book, and I could sit down and I could write this book and get it out there. And I was like, I think I know what I want to write. I'm going to write a theology book, and I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do it. So I sat down February 15th. 1 month later, the world stopped, and my children were at home permanently. And I did not get this book written, right? And I'm very grateful that that book did not get written, because the world does not need another theology book. We've got enough of them. And as much as I love them, and they've informed me and helped me and so forth, I just knew that I was like, I can't write another. Can I swear? Am I allowed to cuss?
Go for it.
Another fucking theology book. I just don't need one. Anyway, so that was like the beginning of like, I actually have to write I have to write in ways that are more honest to myself. I have to write something that I want to read, right? Not just something that I should write, but something that I want to read, something I want it to exist in the world, something that was more creative and more artistic. And so really, like, that was the switch for me. It was like, I didn't want to. When I came to write this book like 3-4 years later, I did not want it to be a book of doctrine and theology. And so, God is very present here because God is present in me and my life, but I don't really talk about God a lot in the book. Like, I don't really, she appears here and there. And
which is a pretty badass thing itself to call God she.
yeah.
For a lot of people in our tradition, we're like, yeah, right on. But it's still an act of rebellion there. I can see you kind of poking and stretching our imaginations to be bigger than what we were taught.
Yeah, I started to call God she about 4 years ago. And
Tell us why.
Sorry?
Why? Share with us the...
Okay, so there's 2 reasons, and they're very representative of who I am.
I don't want to get theological, but I'm curious what your reasons are.
Okay, so there's 2 reasons, and they're very representative of who I am. One of which is that it just felt more honest and true to the experience of the God I had experienced my whole life, right? And that excited me to be able to finally use pronouns that represented what I had experienced, and that was okay. And then also I found, and because there's something about like doing that where you're still like, but is it okay? Am I allowed? And so, then reading about all the ways in Scripture that God is described as female is like, oh, this is something that's been robbed from us. This is something that is there and has been there the entire time. We just have not embraced it. So that was the first reason, was it just felt far more natural. So it was about being honest. It was about being true. It was about being true to my experience of life. The second reason is because it pissed people off. And so I noticed that when I said she, you'd see people twitching. And I was like, oh, I like that. so that's why, yeah.
Yeah, a good truth teller is going to do that, right? He elicits a reaction.
Yeah,
and
it definitely...
It's joyful, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, I definitely came around to it through the good reason.
My congregation knows I don't like doing that. So.
It fueled the fire for sure to see all my evangelical friends, get little twitches in their eyes.
Yeah. Would you read us one more?
Yeah. Can I read you one on that theme? Oh, I don't know yet. Hold on. Okay. This is page 79. This is called Holy Mother. I see you with your world in your arms. One life begets another. I see you, blood given, body stretched, and on occasion broken, but not like porcelain in pieces, like bread you're tearing open. I see you with your heart outside your chest, still beating, swaddled at your breast. I see you, and this is why I must worship God as mother.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. See, most of them are little like that. The first one I read is a lot longer. But
Sorry, say that again?
so most of them are short like that, but yeah.
I know you wanted to make some time for some questions from
Yeah.
you guys. Part of what I understand the book to be is a call to action to be rebels and to kind of circle back to the first one. As people hearing your work for the first time, as people who are watching the news and talking to our friends and we just experience the depths of pain and suffering and division, I think we can all feel the importance of this invitation you're giving us. And at the same time, it can feel so overwhelming and we don't know where to start. Where would you offer people as a place to begin to be people who are joining in this revolution and this rebellion of care?
So one of the things about it is that it isn't about fixing the world and making the world a utopia. Like it's not I don't see it as this kind of utopian ideal. Yeah, I see it really about prioritizing human dignity. And so you can do that for yourself and you can do that for the people around you. And so one of the poems in here is called Love the One in Front of You, and is really just about loving whoever it is that's in front of you right now, just finding ways of loving them and looking after them and valuing them and seeing them and listening to their story and appreciating them as human beings and not just seeing them as, people in our way or people who are wasting our time or people who are, annoying, as almost everyone is. And so, as I am. And so, yeah, I think loving the people in front of you, whoever you're meeting, wherever you're meeting them, is one. And the other is to really view your life as a holy and sacred thing. And in all the ways that seem mundane, and all the ways that seem little and small and insignificant, know that that's kind of where the good stuff of life is, and really where you can experience the divine, is in the smallness of things. In the smallness of our lives. So it really isn't about, so when I say rebellion of care, it's not about taking over the powers of government or media, or it's the opposite of that. It's about transcending those. It's about living your life in such a way where you're paying so much attention and so much care to yourself and your community and those you love, that those powers and those institutions do not run your world.
Beautiful. Thank you. Would you read one more before we take some questions?
Yes. I'm going to read, because this one's bookmarked, Love the One in Front of You. Love the one in front of you, store clerk, waitress, delivery man, Love all the people that you can, and even those you think you can't. Trans barista, grumpy neighbor, tipsy MAGA aunt. Learn people's names and pronouns and presume their pain is just as real as anything you can feel. And when you pass a cyclist, go by wide and slow. We are all in this together, so be gentle as you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David wanted to make time to hear from you. And so whether it's a question about something you've heard or something you've been thinking about, we're pretty casual here, so we're not gonna do the roaming mic thing. We're just gonna trust in the acoustics of the room and our bad hearing. And so if you have a question, just raise your hand and David will do his best. Yes.
Welcome to Toronto. Welcome to Canada and welcome to Burlington, Ontario.
Thank you.
My question for you is, where do you find you write your poetry? And when do you find you are most prolific?
So where do you write your poetry?
Yeah.
And when do you write your poems?
So when it comes to poetry and kind of creative writing, I hate the blank page. Like the blank page is just the least creative environment. So I hate sitting in front of a blank page, working out what to write or what I want to say. It just feels oppressive, and as soon as I get in front of it, I'm like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So really, it has to happen at other times. It has to, it happens wherever and whenever. So, and I've really learned over the years that little spark of inspiration, or that little thing that interests you, or that little thing that catches, it can be a word, it can be a phrase, it can be an idea, it can be a concept, it can be like a whole thing that you kind of realize in a moment. But whenever that happens, just to get it written down as soon as possible, like right there in the minute. So I was doing one of these events in Nashville, and I was talking, and someone asked a question, and during their question, like the way they phrased it, I was like, that's good. And so I got on my phone, I was like, hold on. I was like, wrote it down. I was like, put it down, and then answer the question. And it was like, because I know that I'm not going to remember. You think you're going to remember, and you don't remember, And so, and then what happens for me is that accumulates, and I'm doing that all the time. So when I'm driving, I'm, trying not to die, turning the voice memo on, and like try to get the idea down. But however I can get it down, and then I accumulate. And so I just get more and more and more. And then as I am interested, that's when I return to them. So I think a good sign of whether or not a piece or an idea is good is that you remember it and you want to go back to it. And so I then will go back to it and work on it and add to it. I will sometimes bring in an idea from another piece and so forth. Like that happens a lot where, so I had this poem called Friendship Will Save Us, and it had this, it was fine, right? But I had this really good line about take care of your friends' names when they're not in the room, right? And I was like, oh, that's really good. I'm going to make that its own poem, right? Because I think that's such a strong idea. Like it could be its own poem. And then when I came to write this Friendship Will Save Us poem, I was like, no, it's not quite good enough. It needs that thing. So then I just was like, no, it's not going to be its own poem. I'm going to pull that good idea and spend it on this poem. And then that made that poem much better and much stronger. And my process is kind of chaotic, and so I'm not very disciplined. I don't need to be. Like I know a lot of people are like, if I don't get up and write for 4 hours every day, I won't write, or if I don't set time aside, I won't do it. I don't find that at all. I find that I cannot turn this stupid brain off, and which is amazing for creative writing. It is terrible for sleeping, but it's always buzzing and always going. And so I don't find like I have to have a discipline of trying to write. I do have to have a discipline of finishing things, like of coming back round and completing things and making them as good as they can be and editing. So that's where the discipline comes in for me. But like kind of the creative act is not a discipline for me at all. It's like I don't know how to live without that. And I know that's not true for everyone, and different people can find their ways to that, but that's how it is for me. And I just embrace that. And it really is what interests me. It's like if I'm thinking about it and I like it and I want to go back to it, then that's what I'll work on.
Would you read us A Friendship Will Save Us?
Yes, I will. I was going to save that for tomorrow morning, but okay, I'll read it. You can hear it
do both.
twice.
Tonight and tomorrow works.
Sorry?
You can do both.
I can do both, okay.
I think we'll hear different things in it a second time.
Yes,
so.
it's a rich text. Okay.
And someone clapped when you named it, so we have
okay,
to
yeah,
read
we
it.
have to do it? Okay. Friendship is what will save us, so fall deeply in love with your friends. Date them, woo them, pursue them. Mark your anniversaries, celebrate your victories. Take care of their names when they're not in the room. Create a space for them where all truths are tender. For intimacy doesn't have to be reserved for romance, and crushes do not belong only to lovers. So don't hide it when you find a bona fide ride or die.
Thank you. Another question? Yeah, Barry.
I just wonder about spending that time in Asheville. I've had some exposure to some people, and it just seems like a really neat community. And I'm wondering how that influenced your poetry, spending time in Asheville during the last little while.
So to repeat the question, how has living in Asheville affected me and my work? Really being around like-minded people and people that have the same values as me has been really, really encouraging. Because, you know, when you're constantly in a kind of like position of fight and conflict, and I'm having to fight for the truth, and I'm having to fight what's real, and I'm having to fight for the human dignity of my trans kid, and I'm having to fight for the human dignity of my queer friends, and like you're in that fight mode the entire time. It's not necessarily like the most creative atmosphere. And so to be, broadly speaking, the overall culture of Asheville is very affirming, and I'm not having to fight my neighbors on many things. Now, saying that, where I live, which is like 10, 15 minutes outside of the center of Asheville, like we have an acre of land, and so everyone around us has like has land. And so our street is very mixed. Like our next door neighbors are absolutely incredible. They've become like our best friends, and we love them. The neighbor across the way from our houses is not so incredible, and it's my neighbor Terry. And my neighbor Terry is a racist and a homophobe, and deliberately, recently he has this like back porch, or he has like I guess some kind of granny annex house, like this other little house on his property, and he on the back porch of that house, where he can't even see from his house, he put up a flag recently, and he changes this flag out like every week, and we've had one was like half Stars and Stripes, half Israel flag. It was ugly as hell. We had a Charlie Kirk flag. We've had I don't know. There was one homophobic one, and I just laughed because I'm like, you don't even see those. This is purely for my benefit. But maybe he's read the book, so that's a good. But also saying that when Asheville went crazy with the hurricane, like none of those things mattered in the moment. Like everybody was just checking on each other and making sure each other were okay. Who had water? Who needed this? And it was my Trump supporting neighbors that were the ones with the chainsaws chopping down the trees. So we need them.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Julie.
It's twofold. One is, what is your drink of choice while you write? And then second is, would you read Not My Cup of Tea?
Oh yeah. Okay. So what's my drink of choice while I write? So I do most of my writing I find I'm most creative between 8:30 and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if I'm drinking in the morning, probably drinking coffee. And sometimes water, if I remember. I drink tea in the evenings. And then my other creative time is after the kids have gone to bed. But my kids are old now, so they never go to bed. So, I guess 10 till 2 is which sucks. Anyway, I've screwed up my, writing this book screwed up my sleep. Anyway, so 10 till 2, and I'm not drinking coffee then. I'll probably, if I'm drinking alcohol, I love a martini. I've been making martinis for myself. I live we have the best beer in America, but I get a bit bloated with too much beer. So a little martini a night, maybe a little green tea, to relax it before I go. And I will read I Am Not Your Cup of Tea. This is a request. If I can remember what chapter it's in, I think it's in, here it is, on page 150. I am not your cup of tea because I am made too strong and frankly too hot for you to enjoy. Maybe you can tolerate me in tiny sips, but I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be devoured by those who value all I am and who do not wish I was in any way watered down to meet your tepid tastes.
Thank you. Let's do one more. Yeah.
What are you writing now? And thematically, if this is about a rebellion of care, do you have any inkling of sort of where any future work might be sort of moving, or will you just wait for the spirit to send you those one-liners?
No, I am writing the next. I have two. Okay, so I have three things that I'm kind of working on at the moment. One of which is I've been asked a lot to give lessons or to explain my process a lot, and so I'm writing some I guess, what do you call them, digital courses, or basically just a PDF. And so I'm working on writing those. But that's not what's interesting me as much as I'm in the early stages of accumulating what will be the follow-up to A Rebellion of Care, which doesn't have a title yet. Its theme is coming together. Its theme is very much addressing the moment in which I live in North Carolina in this moment. So, yeah, we'll look at some white supremacy, I think. Um, yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, but again, I'm not rushing it just creatively. I just kind of let it fall. The third thing I'm working on is I'm in the very early stages of a novel, and I have and that's what interests me most at the moment, but may not make me any money, so yeah. With a kind of set in present day, but with a slight science fiction conceit.
Very cool.
Yeah, I can't tell you anymore, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah. So maybe that will come first. I mean, I always used to write with pen and paper. I'd carry notebooks everywhere, got moleskins coming out of my ears. But, I mean, I've just succumbed to writing on my phone and the Notes app. The Notes app is where everything lives and is developed and grows. And then, and then when I'm collecting everything, I'll get it on my computer. But what I do, and I love doing this, is for many of the poems that I've written, I type them up on a typewriter and sell them as prints. And so that's kind of how I make some of my living, is by doing that. So I love the tactile experience. I love being able to offer people prints that aren't just like the ones that are here today are like prints. They're done at printers, but I like to be able to offer people like the hand type print, and there's like this connection between me and the person, and yeah, it's a real thing, and I like doing it. Takes a minute. I hate myself when I make mistakes. Where you can get it? You can get it anywhere you get books, I believe.
So Little Drummer Bookstore has some on order, and so they should have a bunch very soon. They've been on back order, so they've got them now. Great. So Little Drummer Books.
Yep.
Before we get to you, I need to go over here first because I said no, and then we just went. So please, yeah.
I just wanted to say, first, thank you for your voice. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
Really relevant today. My question is actually about tension. I'm new to your work. I actually came across the good of Instagram. Very good. The tension that exists in your work between things. I'm curious how you deal with that in your humanity. The pulling between things that contradict themselves. I'm curious how you do that.
I mean, one of the things I do is I don't view it as tension. So when there are contradictions and contradictory things, contradictory ideas, things I believe that feel like they rub up against each other, I try and not to treat it as, oh no, am I doing this right? Am I going too much this way or too much that way? Like I feel like that, is in that kind of pass-fail mentality, like I have to do this right, I have to get this correct, and I just don't think that's naturally how I would do it and how I've spent most of my life doing it. I actually don't think that that's very helpful for me. The way I do it is I try and be curious about it. I try and be curious about how I have this belief, and they kind of like are in conflict with each other. I'm like, that's curious, like how does that work? How, it's, I try and pay attention to it. I try and remain interested by it and allow it to teach me about how maybe those beliefs are not as good as I thought they were. Or maybe whatever, like maybe there's no way of resolving those things, and I just have to learn how to hold two contradictory things at once, which is a lot of life. And so, I try and not treat it as tension, but try and treat it with curiosity. I think that's how I do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
A great question.
No, last one.
I just wanted to ask you, who is God to you?
It's in the book. Yes.
I want to know who God is to you, why he's still connected and tethered. And for someone who doesn't know, why?
So, I kind of refuse to answer this question in doctrinal theological terms. It's purely about, and I still have beliefs. I still have things I believe. I just don't want to tell you them.
The question was, who is God?
Yeah,
to
who is
David?
God
Yeah,
to
okay.
me?
So please, yeah.
And so what I would say is, I have always had a sense of God, and I still do. And I think maybe if I could have escaped that or left it behind, probably would have done, but I can't. So I don't. And so I treat that with curiosity, and I treat that with interest, and I pay attention. And I've learned many practices over the years that help me. Some have helped me and continue to help me. Others help me for a season and no longer. There are ideas I've had about God that really helped me in various moments and now no longer seem that helpful. And so I, put them on the back burner or let them go. And I seek new understanding. But really, so this is the main thing that's changed for me, is that I used to think that, and this is growing up in the charismatic world, is that God, you experienced God through ecstatic worship high, right? So you were in a room full of people that were having a collective ecstatic religious experience. And that was like the most intense, amazing way of experiencing God. And I now believe that the best way to experience God is to know and love a person. And so, can I shut up now? Is that okay?
It's a great answer.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
I don't want to say any more.
great. Before we say thank you, David's going to be back here tomorrow morning at 10. He's going to be giving the sermon at church tomorrow. So you're all invited back then if you would like. We are so thrilled that you were here. And so if this resonated with you, go check out some of the poems he's got for sale. If you are willing and able to help cover our costs, you can pay out there or scan the QR code in front of you. But mainly, thank you for coming. Thank you so much for being here. We're big believers that we need more spaces like this. We need more conversations like this about art and beauty and wonder and what is essentially good and human. So thank you for coming out. Before we say thank you, do you have one in mind to close? Or can I pick?
No, I'm not gonna let you pick.
I love it. Would you close us with one, please?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Okay.
close.
I'm gonna get out here and
Okay.
let you read.
This is joy as an act of rebellion. Joy is an act of rebellion against established order. That is why the angels brought their glad tidings to the night shift serfs rather than the boardroom suits. Because the joy of heaven, heralded to us, cannot be commoditized, privatized, or monetized. Though the system takes all it can from our tired bodies and stacks its weight upon our aching backs, it will never, not ever, ransack our hallelujahs. Yeah. Thank you.
So David, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much. We really hope you are leaving here feeling inspired and compelled to go and be rebels of care and compassion and love and kindness and mercy and friendship in the world. That's what we believe life is all about. So thank you so much for being here. come hang out for a little bit, but if not, get home safely, and we'll hopefully see you guys again soon. So thank you so much, and good night.